everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today we are doing something a little bit different because this is not a video about books. We're talking about crafts. So this year, one of the things that I wanted to do this year that is not related to like reading and books, but my other like main hobby, which is crafting, is that I really wanted to make an effort this year, throughout the year, to do something creative, to make something, and it's a pretty like loose goal. It's mostly just like I want to work on something creative each month. I want to like make sure I'm focusing on doing something crafty, doing something creative, because I have been doing crafts and like different kinds of art and, you know, trying different hobbies and stuff for so many years. My oldest, you know, craft that I've really stuck with is sewing. I have been sewing since I was maybe like 11 or 12. I have been crocheting for at least like 10 years, and then I just recently started knitting. So I've had many other crafty hobbies along the way, but truly like fiber arts seem to be the ones that really stick with me. But in the last couple of years, I haven't been really doing those like creative hobbies as much, and I really miss it. And honestly, I think that doing like creative things, having a creative outlet, and also like making things with my hands, that is something that I think is also just good for me like mentally, you know? And so I am really just wanting to intentionally make time to work on creative projects. It also doesn't hurt that, as I said recently, I have started knitting, so having a new hobby is always a great motivation for me to like be creative. But yeah, so it's a very loose goal. You know, I don't have to finish something every month. I don't have to make something big. I just want to like mentally go like, you know, am I making time to do something creative each month? And I'm not going to be like, you know, vlogging it or anything like that. You know, my creative projects, I like to spend that time just like in my own head, but I do want to talk about them. So I was thinking I would do kind of quarterly check-ins to just tell you about some of the stuff that I've been making each quarter, because I feel like quarterly, you know, some of these things take a long time to make, so each quarter I'll have like a few things to talk about, hopefully. So this is my first one for quarter one. It's actually like gonna be a little bit more than a quarter, because I'm going to include some things that I started in December, because that is when I started knitting, and I am filming this like more than halfway through April. So it's not really Q1, but it's close enough. We're going with it. But all right, that's a preamble. Let's get into it. Also, I will link in the description any information about like where I got patterns or designers that I used to make these things, because I am sure I will not remember everything off the top of my head as I am talking. So all of that information will be definitely in the description. But the first thing that I knit, the first real thing, because I had like a swatch, like a test swatch that I was doing, but the first actual thing that I knit in December was this hat. So I was kind of reticent to make a hat because, as I said, I've been crocheting for at least 10 years, and when I was getting into crochet, I made so many hats, and I just had way too many hats. I ended up just giving them to anybody who would take a hat, and so I just was like, I don't need more hats, but this was a good, you know, practice to try. This has a twisted rib along the brim, and then it's just a, you know, knit stitch in a bulky, or is it chunky? I can't remember. yarn, and then I got to practice some decreases at the top. It's a little bit too big for my head, but I actually kind of like that because that means it kind of sits down lower and covers my ears, and I used this all through the winter, and it's a really nice hat. I followed a pattern for this that was a YouTube tutorial, which I will link in the description, that was called How to Knit a Hat for Beginners. The yarn that I used is Woolies in Almond. I think these were on 15 needles, size 15 needles. And then yeah, this this worked up pretty quickly because it is small and it was using like large needles and chunky yarn. So it just took me a couple hours to knit this up. But yeah, I was really happy with this one. So this is the first like knit thing that I made. I actually have always kind of avoided knitting. I've technically learned how to knit multiple times and I just like never liked it. And then there was something just recently I came across, videos on Instagram of people knitting, and there was something about it that this time around, it just scratched my brain the right way, and I was like, I need to do this right now. So now I'm into knitting. Never thought I would be, but here we are. From there, the next thing that I knit was a sweater. And this might seem like a weird jump because sweaters are notoriously one of the more difficult things to knit, but there are a few reasons that I decided to do a sweater next. One is because, as I said, I didn't want more hats. I didn't want more accessories. Really, the only knit things that I wanted were sweaters. Like, the reason I'm learning to knit is to make a sweater. And so I didn't really want to make a bunch of other accessories that were just practice, and then I didn't want the actual end product, and then I had to figure out what to do with them. So of course, easing into it and like learning different skills through smaller projects is probably the smarter way to go. But I decided to just dive headfirst into making a sweater. I also am a big believer in like making the things that you're excited about, because being excited about the project that you're making is what is going to keep you motivated to finish it, and it's going to be what, even if it gets hard or confusing, like you're more motivated to go like, I can figure this out, I'm gonna make it work because I want this thing, and this is the thing I'm most excited about. At least that's how it works for me, and so I dove in. One of the other reasons is just my approach to crafts in general tends to be very like, kind of throw yourself in and figure it out. So that was kind of my thought process for this. But so I made this sweater. I have pictures on my Instagram. They're not very good pictures. I need to get better at photographing myself like wearing, like showing off a garment that I've made. But I do have pictures on Instagram if you want to see the full sweater. But this is the, wait a second, I have this written down so I will actually remember. This is the warm-up sweater. And I followed a YouTube tutorial by Clone Knits. And what I liked about her tutorial was, one, the tutorial instructions were really truly like step by step, showing you exactly how to do everything, which was really helpful, especially because it taught me how to do German short rows. And then also it had a written pattern along with it. So that also helped me learn how to read knitting patterns, because I could watch what she was doing in the video and then compare it to what was written in the pattern and kind of figure out how this all worked. So that was really helpful as well. And yeah, it's a very simple raglan style sweater. Raglan, if you're not familiar, is the style where, I don't know how well you can see this, but there is this kind of diagonal line. If you see sweaters where they have like, you know how baseball t-shirts have those like diagonal lines? That's what a raglan sweater is. The way this one starts is you knit the collar, and then you kind of go round and round and round doing increases, which create, and the increases create these diagonal lines. And then when you get far enough down the yoke, you split for sleeves, so then you have the part that's the body and the part that's the sleeves. And then you start to knit those separately. And for this one, I used the Drops Air yarn in orange, which is an Aran weight yarn. And honestly, this is not very orange. It looked a lot more orange online, and then when it came, I was like, this is a lot more red than I was expecting. But I still like the color, and I decided to just go with it. And I do really like the way it turned out. It is a blown yarn, so it is kind of like fuzzy, which is nice, and also kind of hides some inconsistencies or mistakes. There are certainly lots of mistakes in this one. I mean, some of them may be a little difficult to come across on camera, but I don't know if you can see that there is this spot where there's kind of like a line right here. And what happened there was a mistake that I made further up, and I tried to ladder back to fix it, but then I don't know if I maybe pulled the yarn too much, so something happened where I made it worse, and so there turned out to be this kind of gap between the stitches that made this line. Also, my sizing was very off. You know, learning how to do sizing according to knitting patterns, because they talk about like negative ease and positive ease, which is about like how closely it sits to the body. And this is intended to be oversized. It is supposed to have positive ease. It has more positive ease than I was intending or anticipating. I think I got the sizing a little bit wrong. I also I think that the yoke is too long, so the yoke is like the top part of the sweater. And so what ends up happening then, I don't know if you can see how long this yoke is. So that means that, and the end of the yoke is where I split for sleeves. And so that means the armpit of this sweater is like at my waist. It is very low down. So it's a little bit weird in the way that it fits in that way. So that's definitely like lesson learned about trying on the yoke, or like trying on the sweater, seeing how long the yoke will be. I did wet block this, which is where you soak it in water and then you lay it out on a flat surface, and I would pin it. Some people pin them, some people don't. I pinned it down and let it dry, and that kind of relaxes the fibers, and sometimes it stretches. This also stretched a lot. So, you know, I am glad that I blocked it, because it gave it a really nice drape that I like the way that the fibers relaxed and drape is nice, but it like certainly grew, and it is very, very oversized. But overall, like, I was very pleased with the way this came out. Really, for like my first sweater, my second knitting project ever, I felt really good about this. Like, there are plenty of mistakes, lots of lessons learned, but like, I got a wearable sweater, and that's really all I can ask for like a first time making a sweater. And if you're interested in making a sweater, I would highly recommend the tutorial that I followed. It'll be linked in the description, because it really was like super step-by-step, really easy to follow. And yeah, it was a really good tutorial and a simple pattern to follow. And I honestly still refer back to that tutorial when I have to do German short rows on something else. So that is my second completed project. I finished this at the beginning of January. I mostly worked on it through December and then finished it in January. It took me about 3 weeks to make this, which I feel like is pretty fast for a sweater and just a large garment like this. I think part of it is because, like, what made it go quickly was because, you know, it is a chunkier yarn. It's not chunky, it's like an Aran weight, but that is like a larger yarn, so it like goes a little bit more quickly. And it also happened to coincide with when I was on vacation for 2 weeks, and so I just had a lot of time to sit and work on this. And also I was just very excited about it, so I was working on it like constantly. All right, then while I was kind of trying to find yarn for the next sweater I wanted to make, I did end up kind of working on some smaller projects, even though originally I was like, I don't want to work on smaller projects. So one of the things that I started working on was learning how to knit socks, which I did not realize is also one of the more difficult things to make, apparently. I am just choosing all of the worst things to learn how to make. But what I'm doing right now, I kind of paused this and I'm gonna come back to it, but what I'm kind of doing is I want to try a bunch of different sock constructions and then figure out what style of sock I like to make the most, because there are a lot of different ways to construct a sock, especially the heel. Like, that's really the thing. I guess there are maybe different ways to do the toe also, but really like the heel construction can be very different. So I'm planning to kind of do one sock in like multiple constructions so that then I can sort of compare and contrast and figure out what I like. So my first one is this blue sock. It is a single sock. And so this is a reinforced heel flap construction. This is another one, followed a YouTube tutorial that will be linked. And this is in Malabrigo, I think it's like ultimate sock yarn or something like that. And I think the color is Azul. I'll have to double check that. The details will be in the description. But yeah, so this is a reinforced heel flap construction. And so what that means is, if you can see how there's like this little triangle here. So when you knit the column of the ankle, then you kind of split and knit this little rectangle heel flap and then reconnect it to the rest of the foot and then knit down the foot, and you do like decreases. I kind of messed up I think it's that I picked up too many stitches and then I had too many to decrease. So you can kind of see that like the foot is a lot bigger than the ankle, and that's because I picked up too many stitches, so then there was a lot of stitches I had to decrease. I kind of messed up the toe of this also, but I don't really care. Like at that point I was kind of like, I don't care anymore, because I knew that this wasn't going to be a construction that I continued with. I don't really like making the reinforced heel flap. I also don't love the way it looks. Like, it's fine, but it's not my favorite look for a sock. So by the time I got to the toe, I didn't have double pointed needles to like do the tiny little close off at the end. And I kind of was just like, I'm never gonna use this as a real sock. Like, I'm never gonna make another sock to match it because I don't like this construction. So I just sort of like, you know, closed it however. Anyway, so I made this. I have started another construction, but I haven't finished. I paused this and I haven't finished it yet. But now I am working on an afterthought heel. This is not a true afterthought heel because I have put in a little holding stripe right here, but it's close enough. So an afterthought heel, essentially what you do is you knit the full column of the sock and the toe, and then you go back, and you can either just unpick like the stitches, or in my case I kind of made like holding stitches, and so I'll just be able to pull that out, and then you knit the heel as an afterthought, as like the last step. And so far I think I am liking this style better, because I like that you can just do the full sock and then go back and do the heel. And I think like visually I like the look of an afterthought heel better also. So this one might be winning out. I also do have double pointed needles now, so I will be able to actually finish this properly. This yarn, this is also Malabrigo. I don't remember if this is also a sock yarn, but I think this is in the color like Wabi-Sabi or something like that. And I'm doing this on the, whoops, dropping my yarn, on just like the teeny tiniest little circular needles. They are so itty bitty. They are, hold on, where does it say the size? 2.5 millimeters, so they're a size 1.5. They're so itty bitty. All right, and now we are finally on to my current project. So this is the second sweater that I have been working on, which is looking like this, which I love this color. I really wanted this like really vibrant leaf green, so it took me a while to find a yarn that was like exactly the color I wanted. And so this is also Malabrigo, but this is the Dos Tierras yarn, which is 50% wool, 50% alpaca. And I wanted the alpaca because it will give it, right now it's not that fuzzy, but it will kind of like fuzz up a little bit from that. But this is in the color Lettuce, and it is just so beautiful. I love this color so much. This pattern is called the Birch sweater, and I can't remember the designer's name, but I will put it in the description as well. But I saw this on Instagram and I just really liked the shape. This is another raglan style. You might be able to see the raglan a little bit better on this one, that it has these sort of diagonals along the shoulders. And I just really liked the shape of the raglan on this one, so I wanted to give it a try. I have changed so many things about this pattern that it's a little ridiculous, because this is the thing. Pretty much any craft, I will make like one thing really exactly. Like with my first sweater, I followed the pattern so exactly. And then once I do that and I feel like I've got the gist of like how to do something, I immediately start changing stuff. And this is a problem. But I have changed a few things about this. One, I did like a 2x1 ribbing, just because I like the way it looks. So it's 2 knit, 1 purl. So you can see that like the knits are a little bit wider than the purl rows. I did add some German short rows to this because I wanted to have the back be a little bit higher. I think I also did the increases a little bit differently because I realized that I was going to end up in the same type of situation as the first one, where the like armpit of the sweater was going to be like down at my waist, because it wasn't increasing fast enough, and so I had to increase more quickly than the pattern said to. What else have I changed? I just feel like I've changed so many things. I knit the body before the sleeves, which the pattern says to knit the sleeves before the body. I don't think that really makes a big difference, but I did it. And yeah, I mean, sleeves also, I did the 2x1 ribbing. So these are going to be cuffed. And so they'll have the 2x1 ribbing. And yeah, I think I just have been changing a lot of stuff, but I am really excited. I'm really loving the way it's working up. At this point, I am very close to being done. I have like half a sleeve left of this. This has taken me so much longer to make. It took me a long time to find the yarn itself, but then even once I had it, I got like maybe a quarter of the way through the sweater, pretty much like all the way through the yoke, and then ripped it all back and restarted the entire sweater because I didn't like the way it was working up. And then even since then, I have undone and redone so many parts of this, and there are a lot of reasons for that. Like, for some of the reasons I felt like I had to restart it completely. One was because of the sizing, and so I wanted to start the collar with a different number of stitches so that the yoke would like be larger more quickly, so I could end it higher up, because I'm also anticipating that this will probably block out with a lot of, it'll probably stretch a lot when I block it, especially because there's alpaca in it, and I believe that alpaca tends to kind of stretch quite a bit when you block it. I could be wrong about that, but that's my impression. Anyways, so I wanted to start the collar with more stitches so that the yoke would fit better. I also was just not really liking the way my stitches were looking. They were looking really uneven. There's something about this particular yarn that I realized I needed to have a much higher tension and be a much like tighter knitter while using this yarn. Otherwise it looks really messy really fast. So I also wanted to restart because of that. And then finally, I also needed to restart, and also the main reason why I had to like rip back and restart other parts of, and like redo other parts, is because of the color of the yarn. So this is a hand-dyed yarn, even though it's a Malabrigo, but it's a hand-dyed yarn. And so when I ordered it, I needed, you know, quite a few skeins of yarn. Sweaters take a lot of yarn. And, you know, the store let me know that there was, you know, color differences between the different skeins. They sent me pictures. They were very nice about it because the yarn was coming from 2 different dye lots. And I ended up deciding, like, you know what, I'm gonna make it work, because the fact is, with the number of skeins that I need, the likelihood of me getting all of them from one dye lot is very low. So I think if I want to use this yarn, I'm gonna have to deal with this either way. So got all of that yarn. And I separated them into like the 2 different dye lots. All right, I had to charge my battery, so I'm back from doing that. But I think I was talking about the yarn from my green sweater being from different dye lots. And I was just saying that, like, when I got the yarn, I separated the dye lots, started knitting this, and my intention was to just do the full yoke in one dye lot, so I didn't have to worry about like how I was transitioning or anything in the yoke. But then even within one dye lot, I found that the colors were clearly different colors of green, and so there was just like a really obvious line of like demarcation when I changed from one skein to the next, and I didn't like that. Like, I tried to just like keep going, and then I was like, this is gonna bother me. And so I decided, that was also one of the reasons why I decided to like restart the sweater. And then also that was part of why I would kind of undo and redo different parts of this. Like, I undid and redid the sleeve multiple times. And you can kind of see that there's some like color variation. I'm not sure how well it's much more obvious in person, I think, but you might be able to see more clearly. Like, there's also a lot of, there's like more clearly color variation on the body. And if you look at like the color of the yoke versus the color of the ribbing at the bottom of the body, can you tell those are different? I don't know. I might sound like I'm imagining things, but I swear in person, there's a much clearer difference between like the different colors. And so I have been alternating, like on the sleeve, I like alternated skeins for pretty much the entire sleeve so that it has kind of like this heathered effect to it, but it just blended the colors more smoothly. And I did a similar thing on the body. You can kind of see where I started to, where like the yoke ends, and I started adding in the darker skeins and sort of blending those. So I currently have my 2 skeins of yarn. Again, can you tell these are different? They look different to me in person, but I am alternating these as I am finishing up the last sleeve. Yeah, some of this is just shadow because my like camera is making a shadow from being in front of the light, and some of it, like, you can tell, you can see that it, like, the color changes right here. Anyway, this is my current project. I am so close to being done. I just have to finish this sleeve. This has taken me probably close to 2.5 to 3 months to make, because I've been knitting much more slowly. I've taken a lot more pauses, but also like the gauge of the yarn, this is a DK weight, so that is a lighter yarn, so it also goes a little more slowly because each of the stitches are smaller and the needles I'm using are smaller, and then also because I restarted and then like undid and redid so many parts of this. But I am so excited. about this being finished. I really want to be able to wear it. Obviously now I'm gonna finish it at a point where it's probably gonna be too hot to wear it, but when the cold weather comes back around, I'm gonna be so excited because I love this color of green. It's so pretty. And also I think it's a color that looks nice on me. So that is all of my crafting for the first quarter-ish of 2025. Also, just want to put a little plug for some crafting sprints that I've been doing with Kara from Wild Book Garden and Kelly from Cozy Reader Kelly. We are aiming for doing crafting sprints about once a month. We do them over on Kara's channel. I will link them in the description. But yeah, about once a month we do a little crafting sprint, which is mostly just chatting while we work on whatever we're working on. So if you ever want to join us for those, keep an eye out on Kara's channel because she announces it there. But that has also been very helpful for me, like making sure I do something crafty every month, because I have, you know, a couple hours at least once a month set aside to do something creative with them, which is great. But that is all for my Q1 crafting wrap up. I'd love to know, are you guys working on anything? Do you do any like crafty hobbies? Or what is your favorite thing that you made in the first quarter? I mean, really this sweater is my favorite thing, but it's not technically complete, so I don't know if that counts. If not, I would say my first sweater is my favorite thing because I'm just so excited that it was my first sweater. Mistakes and all, I'm excited about my first sweater. But yes, I would love to hear more about your crafting in the first few months of the year, if you do any crafty things. But thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye!